Women's Day. And Lillian's name is Lillian Pearl Bridges. And she got a nice mail after this Women's Lunch lecture where the person said that, wow, he came to hear the pearl of wisdom.
Oh dear.
So let's hear what Lillian can share with us.
Thank you. Hi up here. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. You know, I put a topic up called emotional alchemy, and then I do that. I actually put a topic up and figure out what I'm going to teach later. And yeah, I haven't fully figured out what I'm teaching today because I want to help you understand something that I've been finding in my practice for 25 years. And that is something my grandmother taught me when I was very young. As a little girl, I was about 5, 6 years old, I was learning face reading from my grandmother, and she said to me, you know, there's no such thing as a bad emotion. The only bad emotion is a stuck emotion. And I didn't know what she meant for a very, very long time because I didn't know the emotions could get stuck. I knew she said they could, and I didn't understand how things could get stuck and how things could haunt you that got stuck. And I've spent so many years now working with stuck emotions that I really do understand what she means. I also know that it can be very, very simple to release a stuck emotion. It can also be very, very hard. It depends on how attached you are to those stuck emotions. And if it gives you identity to have a stuck emotion, you're going to keep it. So whenever I meet somebody as a patient, a client, who comes up to me and says, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I have whatever disease it is that they have, I know they're very attached to that disease. And they're very attached to the emotions that cause that disease. And sometimes it really is a matter of seeing something differently than perhaps I see it. And so, for example, I'm known to be a little odd about people's diseases, and we will talk about diseases in a little bit. But I don't think very many diseases are very scary. But I think very, very, very few diseases are scary. I have actually, not yet, but I do have a chart here to show you the leading causes of death, most of which don't scare me. And they don't scare me because you don't have to die from them. You can, many people do, but you don't have to. So when someone comes to me and says, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so and I have cancer, I go, oh, that's interesting. It's interesting that you have cancer. And I ask them what kind, and I ask them what the doctors have said. I don't really care about any of that. I don't care if someone has stage 4 considered terminal cancer. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't mean they're going to have to die. And very often they don't die. I don't know if you've read the studies, but more people are surviving cancer than are getting cancer. And there's a great, great article from the New York Times Magazine a few years ago. A woman online every year gets together with all these other women that she has met through their diagnosis. Their diagnosis was 17 years before. They were all diagnosed with stage 4 terminal breast cancer. None of them have died. All of them are still alive, and every year they get together online saying, hey, we're still alive. And that's really cool to me because it just goes to show you no one should tell you whether you're going to die or not. That's your choice, and your choice is based on whether you want to live or not, and whether you have things to live for. So when someone comes and tells me they have a disease, I go, oh, that's interesting. And I ask them if they understand what this message is they're getting, because to me, any kind of disease, any kind of stuck energy is a message saying, you know what, you've got something to unblock. And cancer in particular is very curious to me because I see underneath it a lot of emotions that become toxified. There's like a toxic trauma that occurs. And if you deal with that toxic trauma, often you'll find that the reason that they have that cancer has actually disappeared. And that cancer doesn't need to be there anymore to block whatever it is that's blocking, whatever organ has decided to take on that burden of the things that the body has decided it doesn't want to have anymore. So really your body is always trying to get back to homeostasis. It's always trying to get back to a very healthy, clear, clean place. And emotions get stuck. And when they get stuck, they block that ability of the jing to actually work. They block the ability of the spirit to come in. It's a blockage, and it's an energy blockage caused by stuck emotions. So I work with it differently, and I'm known to actually tell people, oh, that's great. I mean, whatever disease they have actually is really valuable for them because it's this wonderful wake-up call. You know, wake up. Wake up and look at your life and decide something. So to give you a couple of examples, I had a client one time who came to see me, and of course he's shaking my hand, and his hand is shaking. It's shaking a lot. Well, that usually means Parkinson's, not necessarily, but he had the Parkinson's aura anyway. And he said, hi, my name is so-and-so, I have Parkinson's. I said, oh, congratulations. He said, what? I said, congratulations. He said, why are you congratulating me? I said, because you haven't died yet. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, Parkinson's is really interesting to me. It's a disease that's caused by excessive use of liver qi, in the way I look at it. The liver says, I want to go there, right? Get out of my way. And this person who gets Parkinson's has used their liver so much, whether they've been excessively fiery or they've been doing too much or whatever, they've used too many pesticides when they're doing weeding or something. But whatever it is, the liver has been used too much. And the liver kind of goes, oh, I want to go there, but it can't go there. You see that? I want to go there, but it can't go there because it's tired. It's really, really tired. And your body very lovingly says, you know what? You have to stop doing whatever it is you've been doing too much. So I said to him, congratulations, because you're not dead. And you're not dying. And to me, well, I think you're fine as long as you're not dying. Even if you are dying, you've got to figure out if you want to die or not. And then you don't have to. So he looked at me kind of oddly and said, well, why should I be happy? I said, because you're not dying. Like, Parkinson's takes a very, very long time to kill you, if in fact it does even kill you. Usually it's not Parkinson's that you die from when you get Parkinson's. It just changes the nature of your life. And I said, you must have been doing way too much stuff. And he said, oh, well, yeah, I used to be a marathon runner, and I was a triathlete, and I was a mountain climber, and I was, and the list went down, and I went, oh, how wonderful, you don't have to do all that stuff anymore. He goes, but I like doing it. I said, well, that's great. That was then, this is now. Your body's going, I don't want to do all that. I said, if you don't do all that, maybe you can be more. Maybe you'll find some things to be, and then you can be it, and you'll live a long time. And I have to tell you, he's doing fantastic. He's doing great. And if you go back to look at the history, because I always do look at histories, I look at the facial map, which to me is like rings of the tree. I figure if trees can mark, so can we, right? And you can tell when these things happened. He had a childhood where he was rewarded for very, very young behavior, very masculine behavior. He's not actually a very masculine man. He's about this tall. He's actually quite soft. He's actually very kind. And he didn't want to do all those things. He felt like he had to do those things to prove to his father that he was tough enough. Now he's living quite a wonderful life of being. He's actually writing, he's painting, very happy, very healthy. So that's a cool thing. I also have clients who come with cancer, lots of them. I have lots and lots of cancer patients. And looking for that toxic trauma is really interesting for me. Although I don't really think they should get too attached to that either, because identifying yourself based on a trauma means you're limiting all the other things that you are. And so one of the things I ask most cancer patients is if they want to live. And it's a very shocking reaction that I get. They actually are the ones who are shocked. They're the ones who look at me and kind of go, how could you say that? Well, anybody who tells me, how could you say that, doesn't really want to live that much. That's why they've gotten something to wake them up. And it's okay that they haven't wanted to live that much. But they've got to stop and say, do I want to live? And if I want to live, am I going to bring my spirit back to help unblock whatever has been blocked? And so I get people kind of go, well, of course I do. There's no of course about it. There's no of course. In every moment, we have a choice of whether we should live or we should die. We want to live or want to die. It doesn't mean that you start dying. It just means you're going in a way that's not as conducive to life as this choice might be. And that's okay. You can go that way for a long time before your body gets sick. But they have to stop and say, do I want to live? And I give them permission not to want to sometimes too. I do have patients who die from cancer, and that's okay. If that's what they want to die from, that's okay, because they want to die, it's fine. We can't all live forever, And so I don't want to think that I'm the person who should decide whether they live or not. They have to decide if they want to. And if they don't want to, or even if they can't, perhaps, oh, how lovely, perhaps it's because they have to complete their life in a way that sometimes it's like studying for a test. You get to complete your life fast. You get to say all those things and do all those things you couldn't get to say for the last however many years it's been. So I don't want to judge what somebody gets. What I do want you to be aware of is there's some emotions that are very important under all diseases. And my last little story before we go to the next slide is that I had a client one time. He's actually a football player, American football. And he was having some serious trauma about how well he was playing. He was actually a receiver and he was dropping the ball all the time. And I didn't treat him for that, by the way. That's not what I do. But I was talking to him about his trauma of having been very, very criticized and having been very punished for doing the wrong thing. And that stayed with him all his life. So whenever he dropped the ball, he would see the coach, like his parents, like his teachers, who said, oh, you're bad, you're stupid, you're whatever it was. And he kept that criticism alive for very, very many years. So whenever he dropped the ball, he got booed. And he got booed very, very heavily. And you can imagine like these thousands and thousands and thousands of people booing. And you get this huge issue about not being good enough. And you do something that's not good enough. And everybody boos, right? I mean, can you imagine the trauma when you have this as part of your makeup? And of course, he'd fall apart. And the quarterback, because he's the head of the team, would have to come over and cajole this guy back into playing. He goes, oh, we love you. It's okay. You're wonderful. Come back and play in the game, because he would literally like fall apart. And so he asked me, what can I do? I feel so bad about myself. I said, well, you got to remove all those memories of where you thought you were bad. And for a very long time, I tried to understand what was it about internal demons and how are they created? Because I don't really see that people are like possessed from spirits outside and they go inside you and make you act in a certain way. I mean, even in feng shui, which I also do, the spirits are actually around you and they may attach to you, but they don't go in you. But there are spirits in you and you create them. They're your own history that just kind of stays alive and swirls around in there. And to me, it's like a flickering candle flame. You know, the fear that's there is like this, the flickering candle flame taking away the energy from your kidneys. And when some new oxygen comes in, what happens to flames when they get oxygen? Somebody criticizes you in the future, right, from something that you had in the past. All of a sudden, that candle flame goes, and to me, it's actually what I call fire backdraft. That you have so much fire that starts coming up because of your old history, so the new stuff that's happening meets it, and it makes this huge flame which collapses you. It's fire backdraft. When you have a fire backdraft, the building collapses. So you're not really dealing with what's happening right now. You're dealing with what happened back then, which is accentuated by right now. And right now may not even be as bad as what happened then, because the earlier stuff is always the hardest because you don't have the understanding of why those things happened. And so you imagine that they mean more than they do. So if you take what happens now as something, as just what it is, as is, and you look at something from the past and kind of go, is that important to keep? Do I need to have that as part of my framework? Maybe you can let it go. You're going to see the new stuff doesn't bother you as much, okay? So most diseases have underneath them this old stuff. Not new stuff, old ways of being, old ways of thinking, old ways of acting, and stuck emotions. So I have a slide for you here. I'm in the way of it. It's got a combination of things. It actually has emotions for the basic causes of death that are scientifically studied as being emotions that are involved with diseases. For example, cancer has a very strong correlation with other directedness, thinking of other people before yourself. Almost every cancer patient I have will say something like, oh, my poor kids. What about your kids? Oh, my poor kids have to go through this with me. I said, excuse me, you have to go through it, and yes, your kids have to go through it too, but what about you? Oh, my kids, or my husband, or my wife, or my father, whoever it is, they think about somebody else before they think of themselves. That's actually very proven. But I also find there's a heavy socialization with cancer. So these are things that are studied. There are also things that I've found in my practice over 25 years. And they follow the rules too much. It's like, I think following the rules will kill you. It's like, you're not being authentic if you follow all the rules. I didn't say break the laws, by the way, because I don't want anybody to go to jail. But rules are man-made. It's like, who thought those were a good idea? And so when you follow the rules, trying to be this perfect person, and you play roles, it's like, roles can make you really sick. If you really, really hate the things that you're doing, it's quite dangerous. To give you an example, I have a former employee who had cancer, and she got the all clear. You know, you go back after the first year and the second year, and they say you have no more cancer. And she came to the office crying, and I said, well, what's the matter? I know you don't have cancer. There's no signs of cancer. And she said, no, I don't have cancer. I said, shouldn't you be happy? And she goes, no, now I have to drive my kids to school. That's what she said. I swear to you. It's a true story. And I said, what? She goes, I have to drive my kids to school. I'm well. I said, well, haven't you ever heard of carpools? Can't you get somebody else to drive your kids? She hates getting up in the morning. She's a night person. And you know, kids go to school way too early for night people. They go to school so early. And she was suffering so much because she wanted to stay up at night doing all this creative stuff that she was doing. And she didn't want to wake up so early in the morning and take her kids to school. And she couldn't figure out how not to take her kids to school if she was well. And I said to her, you got to find a different way. Hire somebody. You pay somebody to take your kids to school. That's not a good reason to have cancer. And if that's why you want to be unhealthy, you will be. It's like, really? And then the other thing I've found a lot, especially with all kinds of diseases, sometimes people need attention and they don't get enough attention. And sometimes being sick gives them attention. And they don't get well because they're not going to get attention if they get well. Do you understand? They're the ones who doctor shop. Like, if you have someone who's come to you and they've seen like 35 specialists and they come to you, be careful. They don't really want to get well. I mean, they might think they want to get well, but honestly, when you go around and around and around looking, it's like, oh, are you sure that they really want to do what it takes? And what it takes is a lot of personal work. So what I have here is like all these, reasons that people die, and it's still pretty close to that right now. The new stats just came out. I think cancer might be ahead of heart disease, but I have to tell you, none of these are very dangerous. There's actually a couple of them that I think are the most dangerous. I think accidents are quite dangerous. Those are very dangerous. And I think septicemia is very dangerous. That's called hospital-induced infections. There's one on here that it's not legitimate because they don't study it as a statistic because it's too diffused. And what it is the number one cause of death is actually death by medication, legal or otherwise. There's a lot of death by medication. And that's really fascinating, I think. For example, I don't know, is it called Panadol here or paracetamol? It's Tylenol in the US. That's the number one killer of children. Did you know that? That's the number one of all. Because parents give their kids stuff for a fever, and then they give their kids stuff for the cold or flu, and they have like double paracetamol dosages, which is like worse than mushrooms that are poisonous. And so there's paracetamol poisoning. And frankly, a cool bath works quite well for a fever, don't you think? So does, eucalyptus oil and steam and all that stuff. So, we're over-medicating. And so all these things are like, oh, these are dangerous. I don't think so. There's one not on here. It's actually the next one after this one is suicide. It's also a very, very dangerous cause of death. There's a suicide every 40 seconds or something I saw yesterday? There was an article. It's shocking. This is a really bad year for suicides too, by the way, the year of the horse. It's because of the fire. But anyway, it's a bad year for suicides, as you can tell. But none of these are very dangerous to me. Okay? And most of them take a really, really, really long time to kill you, except for accidents and septicemia and suicide. Those are the ones that I consider very dangerous. The rest of these, I don't think so. So when someone comes to see me, they tell me they have this disease, I kind of go, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I don't actually respond like, oh, you poor thing, which is what friends are supposed to do. I respond like, oh, well, okay, so now what do you want to do about it? That's it. That's how I react to it. And I think it helps because people have so much fear about diseases. I don't know if you've seen this, but people can get diagnosed with cancer and they can die within a couple of months when the cancer didn't kill them. Have you seen that? Shocking. That's the fear of death has caused them to die, I think. I'm serious. Or they want to die and they found a good reason to just check out and it really wasn't cancer anyway. And I see this kind of thing because they believe these are deadly. None of these are deadly, unless you do suicide really well, or you don't have the immune system for the septicemia, or you're not paying attention. And that's what accidents are about, paying attention. So I'm going to give you a little story about that. I was teaching at Oregon College of Oriental Medicine, and I was staying at my friend Sabine Wilm's house because she was out of town and her daughter needed someone to hang out with. So I was driving Sabine's pickup truck, which was kind of cool, with a stick shift, which luckily I can drive. But I didn't really know my way to the class because I'd never gone from where she lives to the school before. So I thought I should leave a little early. And the first day I taught about this, and I was talking about this whole thing about accidents and how the only way out of accidents is to feel your way out of accidents. Because very often people know that an accident's going to happen. And if you watch all the accidents, big accidents that you see in the world, there's often this sign that people say things like, you know what, if something happens to me, take all my albums. You can have them. I give you my albums. And you're kind of going, no, nothing's going to happen to you. And then they die. And you think, how did they know they were going to die? Do you know what I'm talking about? That people will say things like Princess Diana gave away all of her dresses, which I went, oh, that's a bad sign. I did. I swear to you, I said a bad sign because she gave away all her dresses and then she had that horrible car accident. So you'll often find that people kind of know something dangerous is going to happen. I watch way too many crime shows when I'm really, really bored and tired. And I like to watch all the interrogations, you know, because it's like really face reader. I'd like to watch if they're lying or telling the truth and how badly they all lie. My God, there's bad liars. Anyway, so I'm watching these shows, and there's these friends that show up, like, you know, they're investigating, and the friend says, she said that if she dies, her husband did it. And I'm thinking, if she knows her ex-husband is going to kill her, why doesn't she leave? Do you know what I'm saying? Why doesn't she go somewhere? So people know that they're going to die, you know, with these accidents and murders and things. Anyway, so I was talking about this and I said, you know, a couple times in my life I've kind of moved out of the way of an accident. I've felt that's going to happen and I've observed that something's happening and I get out of the way and it doesn't happen. So I haven't done it for a really long time. I should practice that again, which is really bad words because I got the practice the next morning. Leave for school in the truck. There's nobody on the freeway because I'm really early. I'm going to go get a cup of tea somewhere. So I'm on the freeway, and there's this one truck in front of me with a trailer. It's an open freeway. And I'm thinking about moving over, and at that moment I go, something's wrong with that trailer. And I don't even take a step on the brake. I just pull my foot off the gas and back up. And at that moment, the truck in front of me hit this like divot in the road. It wasn't even a very big one. And the trailer bounced, and out of the trailer bounced this red wheelbarrow. And it bounced out of the wheelbarrow and landed right in front of my truck. And I went, oh, there's a red wheelbarrow. That's what I said. And it bounced left into the central median. And I looked at it, and I went, oh, that's what was going to happen. And honestly, my pulse didn't raise, my blood pressure didn't raise, because I knew it was going to happen. I could feel that something's wrong, so I just prepared myself and backed up, and I went, oh, that was a good practice, now I can stop. So I've stopped practicing again, because I don't really want to practice so much. And I came to class and told the class, and all these students said, oh, I saw that wheelbarrow on the freeway. So it was a very good experience to recognize that we have the ability to feel our way out of danger. If you don't want to walk down that street, don't walk down the street. I mean, it's that simple. Right? If you don't want to have that drug, don't take it, right? You don't want to go to that country because you might get whatever disease is currently, you know, raging like Ebola. Don't go there. I mean, I have this instinct about malaria because mosquitoes love me so much that they bite me through DEET. So I really don't want to travel somewhere where there's a lot of malaria because I'll probably get it because I'm afraid of it. That's actually part of the key, but also because mosquitoes love me, they're there. But the fear of it's actually part of it. Do you understand that you attract it because you're afraid of it? So some of these things you're very fearful of, you're going to attract those things that you fear. And so I don't think any of these are very dangerous at all. I mean, honestly, I think that any of these you could survive, any at all, and they take so long to develop. I don't know if you're aware how long diseases take to be created. To give you cancer as an example, cancer takes usually 20 or more years, usually, sometimes 10, sometimes 15 or 20 or 25. But I have found most people who get cancer, the origin of it is decades before. If you have really, really strong Jing, it might be 40 years. If you don't have very strong Jing because of whatever other things you're doing to repress your energy, it might take 10 or 15. But most people around 20 years, you find something that has toxified. It's an emotional thing that's toxified. And I'm going to give you a story. So I have a client, and when she was a young girl, not young girl, when she was a young woman, she was on an exchange to a foreign country. And her mother was afraid that she was going to a bad foreign country because, there were all kinds of criminal elements there. But she went to this foreign country, and she really had a wonderful time. And she fell in love with a man there, so she stayed. And she was in college, so she was old enough, and she stayed there, and she got involved with this man who, he was a bad man apparently, but he got her involved in a way with things that she wasn't wanting to do. He actually wanted her to have sex with his friend. And she didn't want to do it, but it really bothered her because she was a very old-fashioned girl from America, and she didn't want to get involved with some other man. But he said, oh, no, for me, that will excite me, and I want you to be with my friend, and I want to watch, and all that stuff. So she ends up doing that and thinking, oh, this is horrible, I don't want to do this anymore. And it happens a couple more times. Anyway, at that point, she says to him, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do this. And so she ends up finding a way to leave, but she felt very dependent on this man. And it was very hard for her to get out and get away and find a way to get back to the States. And years later, she develops cancer, and she develops cancer, you know, in the reproductive organs. And she didn't tell anybody about the story ever until she told me. And you wouldn't recognize her because I changed the story some, but you wouldn't recognize her if you saw her or met her. Anyway, she came to me and said, I understand you help people with the origins of cancer. And she said, I don't know why I have this. And she told me this story. I said, well, I think this is involved, because she did too. And I said, what you have to get over is the shame of it. I said, lots of people make bad mistakes, you know, when they're young. Make mistakes, what they consider mistakes, but, you know, they're really not mistakes. They're just learning experiences. And I said, what's good about it? And she said, nothing. I said, no, what's good about it? And she said to me, how can I think it's good when I was a prostitute? I said, excuse me. She said, he got paid. I said, really? I said, did you get paid? And she goes, no. I said, then you're not a prostitute. She goes, but I was. I go, no, you weren't. And she said, but I was. I said, no, you're not. And she said, I was. I got paid. I go, no, you didn't get paid. He got paid. You didn't even know he got paid. She didn't know. I said, that makes him a pimp. He's seriously a pimp. But you're not a prostitute because you didn't get paid. Prostitution is a very kind of like, it's a contract. It's very businesslike. Okay, I'll do this for you and you pay me that. That's all there is to it. It's a contract. You didn't have that contract. You did it out of a misguided sense of love for this bad boyfriend, right? I said, so you're not a prostitute? And she goes, no, I said, no, you're not. She goes, really? I go, no, you're not. So let me ask you this. I know women who are married to men they don't love. They don't lust after at all. They married them because they have a position and they can have a place in society, they have money, whatever else. Is that prostitution? She goes, no. I said, that's a contract. You didn't have one. So who's the prostitute? She goes, if they're not, are you? And she goes, I'm not? Really, I'm not? If you could have seen her face, you would have understood that she actually thought for all these years she was so bad. She was so wrong. I said, honey, you slept with less men than most women. I mean, she got married when she came back to the States. It's like 4 men. Are you kidding me? That's nothing. Okay, so so why do you feel so bad? I mean, really, okay? I really wanted to help her not feel like that was this horrible thing. And I do believe that that toxicity, that shame around that experience was actually really harming her. And so what I try to help people do is, you don't have to spend all this time looking at what happened and going to therapy and going over it. You don't want to relive it, you understand? You did it once, you don't have to do it again, honestly. And if you find your life purpose, your path and your passion for living or whatever, you don't actually even have to work with it at all. You can just like realize it was very valuable in getting you where you want to go. But if you should choose to spend some time because you got a wake-up call, or your clients have got a wake-up call because they have a certain disease, then what you want to do is transform those negative emotions. And they're negative because you consider them negative, not because they're negative. You transform those experiences, those feelings, into something positive, that you rise above it and you look at it as something that's much more than you thought it was then. You know, looking back, I'll often tell people, you know, you need to remother yourself. If you were your own mother, what would you say? Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. That's, you know, you did the best you could. Wouldn't you say that about many things you thought were a mistake, right? If you were your own mother, you kind of go, oh, everybody makes mistakes. But instead you're going, oh, you're so stupid, you're so bad. Why are we doing that? Okay, you don't need to do that. And so what you want to remove is all those feelings that you have lodged there somewhere in your body that say that you're bad or wrong or terrible, because you're not. You're just, you know, you're a human being. And what I find is when you get in touch more with your spirit actually is the more evolved part of you, you can start looking at things from a different perspective. It's like, oh, how wonderful that that happened to me. How great that I experienced that, okay? How wonderful that I was in that situation. How lovely it was that that person taught me so much. One of the things I really work with in my programs is I try to help people stop killing messengers, you know? You gotta understand, people come and give you lessons. You ask for them. Stop trying to like kill the messenger, because they're giving you valuable information about things that you're attracting because you have stuff to work on. And when you start looking at the fact that you're bringing these people in to give you these experiences, and you can look at these experiences from a different perspective about what's good about it, and you start feeling good about that experience because it gives you what I consider boundaries of your existence, then it no longer becomes this bad thing. Now the trick is, you may have a horrible experience in the past, okay? And a lot of us do. Oh, very traumatic, very painful. Our younger minds didn't know how to handle that stuff, and we put a lot of judgment about it, as Michael said. And so we have all these feelings about it, and those feelings get stuck in our body. Okay? And we wonder why later on our organs get upset, because emotions get stuck in our body. Emotions are fiery. If you don't express them, and you've got fire stuck in your body, you get inflammation. Inflammation underlies most major diseases. And they wonder how to cure inflammation. Well, one of the ways to deal with inflammation is to work with the emotional nature, because that is inflammation. And you got all this stuff stuck in there. Yeah, well, you rise above it and kind of go, oh, that was really, really good for me. I am so glad that that happened to me, okay? I'm so glad I did this. I had one, well, I had a couple of not so good marriages, but I had one really bad marriage. And for a long, long time, I hated him. Then for a long, long time, I was mad at myself. And then I got over both of those things, and I knew it was really good for me for that to have happened. I learned that I was brave and courageous and strong and all those things, but I still held the pain of what happened. And I couldn't understand, why am I holding the pain of what happened when I know it was good for me? And this is the dilemma that most of my clients have. They're pretty evolved people, right? They work on themselves a lot. And they know that whatever bad happened to them was really, really good for them, but they can't let go of the pain. Okay? So you have to ask yourself, what is the payoff for having that pain? You know what the payoff is? For people who don't want to be fully alive, it makes you feel like you're almost alive. Do you understand? That pain is a very human thing, and that we think we have to feel it. I don't think we have to feel that much pain. In fact, the older I get and the more I'm not holding on to such big emotions, the stranger it is to be involved with friends. So for example, friends will say to you, well, why aren't you upset with me? They'll actually get upset with you for not being upset with them. When you're kind of going, you know, you shouldn't take that so hard maybe, because it's not so bad that that's happening. They'll go, why aren't you upset with me? Right? Have you had that happen yet? Where your friends get upset because you're not upset? And what you'll see is this old stuff, right, gives you that identity I mentioned earlier. It also is something that we hold on to because we want to feel alive. What you have to do instead is bring your spirit in more. Okay? And of course, I'm going to talk about the Shen more in my class on Sunday, but the thing is, the Shen is just one of the terms that we use for spirit. What I am finding more and more and more is that whenever you have a disease, any of these things, you're actually getting this wake-up call because you're not fully embodied. Okay, your spirit is not fully present. And when you live fully present, it's extraordinary what happens. Just recently, I had an experience where I have someone who's close to me who's missing someone else who's far away. And I said to her, you know, honey, you're missing something that you used to have, and you're missing something you're not going to have for the next couple of months. But right here, right now, in this moment in time, you're actually quite happy. I mean, life is quite good. Can you stay here? Can you be in the moment? It's very hard to do, actually. People don't understand that that's actually one of the hardest things to do, is to be here. And when you are fully present, it's amazing how well your body works, I have to tell you. And it's also when you're fully alive. And many diseases, in my opinion, are failure to incarnate fully. Failure to incarnate. To give you an example, I've been working with a few people recently with eating disorders, all kinds. It's been a very interesting thing for me. I love to eat, so I don't have that issue with not eating or eating the way that they do or don't. And I'm not judging that. It's just something I don't fully understand. And I like to learn about things I don't understand. Okay, but I have had some body dysmorphia where I look at my body and kind of go, this is wrong or that's wrong. So I get that part of it. And one of the things that I'm seeing is this desire for perfection that's so strong because of media, because of society that says you should look a certain way. I think I was temporarily in for I don't know how long, and currently I'm in again because I have actually a German butt, which I'm quite happy about. Thank you, Kim Kardashian. So I'm in again, I guess. Anyway, but you're in or you're out, and this year I don't have the eyebrows that everybody wants, and next year I do, and we have all these social ideals of what's valuable, and Anyway, all I can tell you is we suffer a lot for how we look or don't look. I mean, how many guys here go, oh, I don't have six-pack abs. You do have them, they're just not showing. That's all. They're there, okay? So everybody has them, you know. So the thing is, we suffer this so much, right? And so this perfectionism is so present, and what I see is they can't stand not being perfect. So their spirit leaves their body, and their body just can't eat. It doesn't want to eat because they have this ideal they're trying to meet instead of just like being fully present. And what I found is, and I'm not the best example of this at the moment, but I found that the body has a natural set point. And the people who have anorexia are just as disembodied as the ones who have obesity. I'll just tell you that flat out. Obesity often is someone whose body is trying to ground because the spirit's not present. Do you understand? It's artificial grounding. And it may be because they have a lot of pain from the past or pain in the present that they're trying to buffer, because fat buffers pain, but they're not present. And so what I really try to do is help people become more present. And in the present moment, do you really want to have that? Whatever it is. Do you want to have those things, right? And people get really scared. Oh, Alzheimer's, everybody's getting Alzheimer's. Okay, you know what? No, they're not. And people who get Alzheimer's get it because they want to forget. If you don't have things you want to forget, then maybe you won't get Alzheimer's. What do you think? You know, the part of the brain that's involved with Alzheimer's is actually the part that's involved with fantasy. It's involved with imagination. Maybe you're using too much imagination, which is what happens when we have things happen. We go, oh, it means this and this and this, and it doesn't mean that. Okay? I'll give you an example of something. I mean, I have an imagination. I should write novels some days. It's amazing where I can go with the little thing that happens, like, oh, that's going to happen. And I really watch it because it is a family trait. And my mom does have some dementia, so I'm watching it. But I also had a dream one time. Buddha came to me in a dream. I was having a really stressful time in life and something significant was going to happen. And he came to me in a dream and he said to me, I only knew it was Buddha because of what he said, not because I could see him. It was just this white light. And Buddha says to me, you do not have to suffer anymore. And I went, yeah, whatever. This is true. And then he said it again. And I go, yeah, tell me something I don't know. I was arguing with Buddha. Okay, I was really, really like not respectful. Anyway, I kept on going for a long time. And finally, I said, okay, fine. I get that. So what do I do about the imagination? And then he very quietly says to me, about suffering, he said, watch your imagination. It's the imagination. You do not have to suffer anymore. I woke up and went, oh, I was arguing with Buddha. I'm still so embarrassed about that, but oh well. Anyway, for the next several months, I watched my imagination. I watched it very, very, very carefully. And oh my goodness, I have a good one. And it's one of those things that I've started to pay attention to even more as I get older. Most of the stuff that I imagine doesn't happen. And I waste so much energy imagining that's going to happen. So when it doesn't happen, I have no energy for what does happen, which is something else. So what I try to do now is just accept what is, and acceptance is actually really, really hard. And not live so much in the future about what's going to happen, and not fear what might happen that doesn't happen. And so or not live in the past, what's already happened, and sandbag what's happening now. So if you watch the imagination, you're going to find that living in the present moment, having your spirit fully involved, will keep you very, very healthy. Okay? It'll keep you very happy, because it's really hard to be unhappy when you're present. How are we doing on time? Almost time? 1 minute. Okay. And so close. The imagination's tricky because it's fast. It's really, really fast. If you're creative, it's even faster. And so what you want to do instead of imagining you're going to die or imagining that someone's going to leave you, is you just enjoy what you have now. And whatever happens, you'll be ready for it because all of your chi will be present. You won't have wasted all your jing, living someplace that isn't now. And so if you can keep your spirit here, now, you don't have to die. You can live fully. Thank you so much.